take place, etc., etc. At the end of this narration, this intriguing dialogue, a strange man, nobody knew, etc., speaking directly to the Prophet, and every time the Prophet ﷺ gave him an answer, he said, Sadaqta. That's right. You're right. That's correct. فَعَجِبْنَا لَهُ يَسْأَلُهُ وَيُصَدِّقُهُ. We were amazed how he asked the Prophet a question, the Prophet answered the question, and then he confirmed the Prophet's answer. It's even more perplexing, because someone who doesn't know, he doesn't say, yeah, that's right, teacher. You're my teacher. I don't know, you teach me, thank you. I don't say, that was right for you teaching me. At the end of the hadith, the Prophet ﷺ, he asked some of the companions, he asked Umar, Atadri man as-sa'ilu. Do you know who this man was? Do you know who this questioner was? فَلَبِثْنَا مَلِيًّا. We waited for some time, no one gave the answer. And the Prophet ﷺ says, جَاءَكُمْ أو جَاءَ جِبْرِيلُ يُعَلِّمُكُمْ أَمْرَ دِينِكُمْ. He says that this questioner, this wayfarer, this traveler, this seemingly supposedly rude person asking these questions was Jibreel, and he came you to teach you your religion. Why am I bringing up this hadith when we're talking about Umrah, an Umrah class? The Prophet ﷺ, he gave all the answers. He taught the companions about Islam, Iman, and Ihsan, and in the signs of the last day. Jibreel ﷺ taught what? What did he teach? What did Jibreel teach? He didn't teach anything. Jibreel asked the question. The Prophet answered the questions. He gave the answers. But the Prophet ﷺ says he came to teach you what? Your religion. What does this mean? Asking questions is a major part of what? No. Teaching. Teaching. So that's what we're going to do with our Umrah class right now, inshallah. This Umrah class is going to be a little different. It's going to be unorthodox. I'm going to ask you the questions. I'm going to see what you know and now what you may not know. And then in the end, we'll get a solid piece of the correct Umrah, the basic standard for Umrah, let alone the premium package. To make a good Umrah, a polished Umrah, and to offer the best to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Raise your right hand, not your left hand, if you haven't made Umrah before, if it's your first time. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That's a good number. 9. Maybe the majority. Raise your right hand, never your left hand, if you've made Umrah before. Raise your right hand if you made Hajj before. Okay, mashallah. Raise your right hand if you made Hajj or Umrah multiple times. Okay, all right. Mashallah. Tayyib. So, those who haven't made Umrah or Hajj before, I'm going to ask you another question. What questions do you have for me about Umrah? If you don't have no questions about Umrah, that's a bad sign. It's a very bad sign. I mean, you didn't prepare, and that means you're willing to be taken willy-nilly and led around and paraded around. I want to know what's correct, why, how, what do I do when I get here, when I'm in this situation. All right, little sister.
So when you first enter Umrah, do you make the first rak'ah, right?
When you first perform the Umrah, meaning reaching Mecca,
Right.
do you make 2 rak'ah? That's one question. Everybody heard the question? Let's reword her question now. I.e., what's the first thing that the pilgrim should do upon reaching Mecca, upon reaching Al-Masjid al-Haram? That's the summary of her question. It's very important. What is the first thing you should and shouldn't do? Put that on pause. We're going to come back to that. Between Safa and Marwa, how long should you, or how long can you stand and make dua? What's Safa, what's Marwa? Why do I have to go between them? And do I have to make dua? What if I don't know Arabic? Can I say it in English? Can I make a short dua?
Right.
Guys on the same track as thought. Walking or running, going back between Safa and Marwa. Can I do it in a wheelchair? Can somebody push me? Can somebody carry me? Should I run? And as if there's something recommended or obligatory to be said at each point. Put that on pause. Any other questions for our first time Umrah pilgrims? Any other questions? All right, brothers and sisters who have made Umrah or Hajj before, do you have any questions? Going once.
Yes.
Fadal.
Yeah, cutting up the hair. Can we just trim it? Or do
Cutting
we
up
have
the
to
hair.
bald?
Does the hair have to be shaven or can it be trimmed? What does cutting hair have to do with Umrah? What do you mean? That's my style. That's my fashion. What does that have to do with worship? I.e., a part of Umrah, a necessary part of Umrah is pertaining to your hair. And some type of hair or level of hair has to be removed for men and for women. How much hair? When? What's obligatory? What's recommended? Clear on that? Let's put that on pause. Any other questions? Fadal.
When you are going between Safa and Marwa, do you say anything? And if so, what do you say?
Are there supplications to be made between Safa and Marwa? Obligatory or recommended? And if there are, what are they? What are those supplications? What's the best thing for me to say when I'm walking between those two mountains? All right, put it on pause. Anybody else? So far, what do we have? So far we have we have acts of Hajj and Umrah. Just no Umrah. Acts, physical actions. Mechanical movements of my limbs. And then we also have the movement of the tongue. Everybody with me? Whether you have to or should say. Thirdly, we have removal of things. Removing hair, cutting or trimming or shaving the hair. When is that to be done? How much has to be done? Everybody on the same page or not? In regards to putting together a structure, all right, a scaffold for the Umrah, right? Any other questions? Fadal.
In regards to, not being able to wear any scented things or whatever
That
case
you
may be,
can't wear scented things, cologne or perfume, i.e. a part of Umrah are things that you cannot do. Listen carefully. A big part of Umrah, not what you should do, what you have to do, but things that you can't do. You can't do this, you can't wear this, you can't have this, you can't spray this. All right, continue.
And when can you wear these things?
When can you wear these things? I like to smell good, or I want to keep down my perspiration or my body odor, or the sunnah is to wear good oils, etc. When am I allowed to do that? All right, Tayyip? Any other questions? Bismillah.
Can I wear an actual belt to hold up my head?
Can I wear a belt? Can I wear a belt? Clothing that is okay, and clothing which isn't okay. Tayyip. Shoes. Can I wear shoes or do I have to be barefoot? The clothing, the uniform of Umrah is from top to toe. You guys get the point? There are regulations and restrictions from your forehead to your big toe. Or your pinky toe. Alright? You guys clear on that or not? Tight. Any other questions? Do you have to be in wudu between Safa and Marwa? I'm not making physical salah. Do I have to be upon wudu or ghusl? I broke my wudu. A man or woman who's in a different state, is that lawful? Is there a metaphysical condition for tawaf and for sa'i? Very important question. Tayyip, anything else?
Because in the card, you forgot to make the intention.
If you forget to make your intentions at the miqat, what do you do? Once again, this is the third dimension. Physical, verbal, metaphysical, psycho-spiritual. This is my niyyah. I'm pressing the button, the go button, the run button. I'm officially in Haji mode. You guys with me or not? I'm officially in Haji mode. I pressed the button, but I forgot to hit the button. What do I do? All right, any other questions?
Validate or invalidate?
What could possibly damage your Umrah to render it null? It's of no use. All the money I spent, I took 2 weeks off of work, I put everything on pause, and I return home empty-handed. That's a very important question. What breaks your Umrah and destroys your Umrah? Tayyip.
At what point do you stop saying the talbiyah?
At what point do you stop saying the talbiyah? I.e. the supplications of Umrah are not constant. There are some that are conditional and some that are for certain places and acts. Compartmentalizing what you say. All right, Tayyip. Anything else?
Does the person that's being pushed in the wheelchair or driven in the car, they get the same reward as the person that's walking?
Somebody who's sitting down, do they get half the reward like voluntary prayer? Qiyam al-layl, I want to sit down. You have the option of sitting down. even if you aren't suffering from any injury or any damage or any type of pain. I just want to play the qiyam sitting down. You get half the rewards. Does that also apply to Umrah, or do I get my full reward if I cannot walk and I need to be pushed, or if I choose to be pushed? Taking into consideration a person's health condition. All right, anything else before we get started?
Can I make Umrah on behalf of someone
Can I
else?
make Umrah on behalf of somebody else, or does it have to be just for me? All right, tight. So, for someone who has died, someone has passed, can you make Umrah on their behalf? That's a good question. Perhaps we'll answer it, inshallah. All right, so, first and foremost, Umrah is extremely virtuous. The Prophet ﷺ says, Al-Umratu ila al-Umrati kaffaratun lima baynahuma wal-Hajjul mabruru laysa lahu jaza'un illa al-Jannah. One Umrah to the next is a means of all of those sins being wiped away and you being expunged of your sins from one Umrah to the next. And there is no reward for a good, blessed Hajj except for Jannah. There's no other reward except for Jannah. The Prophet ﷺ, he spoke on the virtue of Umrah, the superiority and the awesomeness of Umrah, and several ahadith. That's point one, summarized. Point two, what is the ruling of making Umrah? Umrah is either obligatory once in your life, like Hajj, and if not, it's highly recommended. There's no third ruling of it, one of those two. It's either you must do it at least once, or it's something that you are highly encouraged and decided to do. Number three, what are the absolute musts of Umrah? The absolute must. Number one, Al-Ihram. And Ihram, let's see your bag, please, Sheikh. This is not Ihram. This isn't Ihram. It's not Ihram. Ihram is something else. It's a part of Ihram, but this itself is not Ihram. Number two, Tawaf. It's an absolute must. It's a mandatory pillar of the Umrah. No Tawaf, no Umrah. I forgot to make Tawaf, you have no Umrah. You failed to fulfill one of the conditions of Tawaf, you have no Umrah. Number three, Sa'i. Sa'i. You must go between Safa and Marwa with the legislated amount of times, the circuits. We'll get there, inshallah. That's a must. I was too tired, I forgot, I fell asleep, I had an emergency. If you did not make Sa'i, you have no Umrah. And last but not least is bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. Right, those are the three main pillars. We want to suffice it to it. All right, tight. Moving forward. What are the things that are obligatory? Doing things in order. What's the last thing that you do in Umrah? You shave your hair. Men, it's best to shave their heads. The Prophet ﷺ, he made dua for those who shave once. And then he said it twice. And then he said it 3 times. At that time, the companion says, وَلِلْمُقَصِّرِينَ أَيْضًا يَا رَسُولَ اللَّهِ. What about the men who just trim their hair? The Prophet ﷺ, he says, وَلِلْمُقَصِّرِينَ. But he never said, Allahumma irham al-muqassirin. So shaving the head is ultimately superior, and it's a manifestation of humility to remove your adornment and your beauty for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. As far as women are not to shave their heads. The only thing they have to do is take a small piece of hair from their hair. Whatever type of hairstyle you have, whether your hair is tied up, whether it's long, whether it's short, the tip of your index finger, you trim it. Men's hair their head should be shaven, and if you are just going to trim your head, the man's head should be trimmed evenly, and not just a piece. If you have locks or braids or plaits, it should be trimmed evenly or shaven altogether. All right, tell you. So the first thing that you do upon arriving at Mecca, if you wish to make a dua when you see the Kaaba, you do so. You start off, Bismillah, Allahu Akbar, you see the black stone. If you have the ability to touch it, you have the ability to kiss it without harming yourself or throwing yourself in harm's way, bumping into people, getting elbowed or kicked or kneed, do so. And if you cannot, make a signal and you begin your first round of Tawaf. Tawaf is 7 times. The Kaaba has to be on your left side. If you make Kaaba counterclockwise, make Tawaf, you have no Tawaf. You should have wudu. No difference of opinion among the ulama that you should have wudu when you make Tawaf. Do you have to have wudu? Different story. But you should have it. There are recommended supplications that you make. And inshallah ta'ala, I'm going to show you guys when we get there physically on what corner to say what dua. The black stone, the Yemeni corner. رَبَّنَا آتِنَا فِي الدُّنْيَا حَسَنَةً وَفِي الْآخِرَةِ حَسَنَةً وَقِنَا عَذَابَ النَّارِ. Kissing the black stone if you have the ability, touching the Kaaba, the multazim, Those are finer details. So therefore, the black stone is on my left. One time, one full loop, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There is no mandatory supplication between the tawafs. You can make dua, you can make dhikr, you can read a book, you can have a lawful conversation with your friend or your wife, you can take a picture, that's totally fine. But the best thing to stay busy with is dua and dhikr, reading the Quran, benefiting yourself. What happens if you doubt? I'm not sure how many circuits I made. Then you stick with that what you know for sure. Maybe I did 5, I know I did 4. So you make sure that you do, you cover yourself. But do not feed into waswas. Shaitan whispering to you, getting you to have doubts about your worship. After you finish those 7 circuits, if you have the ability to kiss the black stone one more time, you do so. If not, you proceed to the maqam of Ibrahim, Abraham's station. Abraham's station is relatively small. There are going to be a lot of people. If you have the ability to pray directly in that location, you do so. And if not, wherever you can. 2 rak'ah. Surah Al-Kafirun in the first rak'ah, and Surah Al-Ikhlas in the second. All right, you are now done your tawaf. It's time to move on.
So, between Abraham's station, you're actually between
Behind Abraham's station. Yes. And we'll point that out to you, inshallah, when we get there. You're making those 2 rak'ah. Now it's time to move to Sa'i. Which one do you start with, Safa or Marwa? Safa. Start off with Safa. Which side of Safa one coming from the Kaaba? The Kaaba is towards my back. Where's Safa? To the left. Exactly. To the left. Ascend Safa, and it's not like a mountain. Much of it is tiled or enclosed behind glass, but there are parts that are rocky. So watch your step. Be careful. In the Safa wal Marwa min sha'airillah. Recommended supplications that you should have in your books of supplications. You begin your sa'i. You're going to walk slowly, peacefully, until you get to a point in which you see 2 green light fixtures. 2 green light fixtures. Men, inshallah, should run briskly, not running anybody, trucking anybody, playing football. Run a little bit vigorously between those 2 light fixtures. And then you stop when you get to Marwa. You're going to turn around and you make your dua. You do not have to make the du'as. If you're tired, if you're sick, if you're scared, if you're lost, going between the mountains is sufficient. You want to make the extra du'as, you start off, La ilaha illallah wahdahu la sharika lahu, lahul mulku wa lahul hamdu, yuhyi wa yumitu wa huwa ala kulli shay'in qadir. La ilaha illallah wahdahu, to the end of that supplication. Then you make your own personal dua. Then you go back to that supplication a second time. Then you make your own personal dua 3 times. And then you start your next circuit. So if you start at Safa, you're supposed to end where? At Marwa. All right. Afterwards, it's time to shave the hair. The hair has to be shaven. We'll get there, inshallah. We explained that. Now, there's a long period of time between right now, right here, and shaving your head. So the people of Medina, they have a miqat. And the miqat is basically like a checkpoint. You aren't allowed to pass unless you've entered into the ihram state. The ihram state is your intention that I'm now not hajj. And it's recommended to say, Allahumma labbaika umratan. We're going to go over this, inshallah ta'ala, when we get to Dhul Khalifa as well. The miqat of Medina. Allahumma labbaika umrah. Once you make that statement, you make that intention, you're now in Haji mode. You aren't allowed to wear your normal clothes for men. And that is a tajarrud min al-makhit. Al-makhit does not mean stitched clothing, as many people think. That's a misconception. Al-makhit ma suni'a ala hay'ati udwin. Is that which has sleeves, openings, and entrances for your legs and limbs. That's what's meant by makhit, not stitched. So for argument's sake, if I took off my vest, this is argument's sake, the vest have stitching on it or not? Has stitching. So for argument's sake, if I did this, and if it was long enough, there will be what? There will be sufficient. It does not have to be white. It's recommended to be white, to be clean, to be fresh, but it doesn't have to be stitchless or seamless. That's incorrect. That's a wrong understanding. So men, that means no socks unless you have a medical condition. I will get there. If you have an issue with your feet, that means you aren't allowed to cover your head. And that means you aren't allowed to wear any shirts, underwears, underpants, nothing. The izar and the rida. As far as women, your ihram, you aren't allowed to cover your faces directly with the niqab. A veil that hangs and drapes from your forehead, no problem. But you aren't allowed to wear the traditional niqab because that goes on the bones of the face, like a shirt or like pants. So there's nothing special that you have to do with regards to your clothing. Men, you have to get totally naked and you put on the two-piece ihram. Izar and rida. Izar for the bottom, rida for the top. Inshallah, perhaps we'll get into some practical ways of wearing this. In general, not too tight. You would have some leg movement, but you don't want it to be too loose and too slack, in which you'd be embarrassed. All right, and the holiest place, you don't want to be embarrassed. All right?
Out there.
It's not what you want to do. All right.
Or
Okay?
you gotta drop real fast.
Yeah, you don't want to do that. All right. So inshallah, we'll go over this with the brothers, the specifics of how to tie it, maybe. So, women, you aren't allowed to wear niqab. That's it. Men, all of these traditional articles of clothing, they have to go. It's recommended to take a shower. It's recommended to trim your fingernails, your toenails, your mustache, your hair under your armpits and other places from the fitrah. And it's lawful for you to put on cologne or oil that's not going to directly touch the clothing. It's not going to directly touch the clothing. Obviously, women aren't supposed to perfume themselves outside of their homes, period. You're not supposed to be smelling sweet and nice except for among your sisters or your husband or your son or your husband, your mahrams. Your mahrams. All right. Simple, easy. Give yourself a little space. Start high. Give yourself slack. And make sure you have more than enough room to cover your belly button. All right? Your belly button shouldn't be exposed, and you don't want to have so much skin exposed. All right? So you can start from like this, from the front, or you can start from the back. Whatever is comfortable for you. But give yourself space and slack to make it tight enough on the waist, but loose enough to make a few basic kicks. Inshallah. All right, tell you. My preferred method, you come up and you make your, not too tight, but just enough. A belt. There's nothing wrong with wearing a belt or a fanny pack, if that's what you want to call it. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with wearing a watch. There's nothing wrong with wearing a ring. There's nothing wrong with wearing sunglasses or reading glasses that you may have. All of these things are permissible. None of this is included in al-makhit. All right? Everybody clear on this, inshallah ta'ala. As far as footwear, one or two things. You either have sandals or khufs. And if you wear khufs, they have to be cut at a certain length. They should be cut at a certain length. So to keep it safe, to be on the safe side, or wear a pair of Crocs. Rubber ships, no socks unless you have a medical condition. If you have a medical condition, come speak to me and I'll tell you exactly what you need to do. Whatever that medical condition may be. And there's no shyness in the religion, huh? There's no shyness when it comes to learning. I'm embarrassed, I have an issue with my bladder shake. You ask. You don't want to ruin your ibadah. It's okay. We all have problems. We all have health issues. If you have a health issue, speak to me in private and I'll tell you what you need to do, what can and cannot be done. Inshallah, don't be embarrassed or shy. All right, tell you. So that's my bottom piece. My top piece. So if I put on deodorant, it's my armpits. The deodorant has perfume on it. It's not going to touch this. And I put on deodorant before I put this on. And before I enter that state. You understand this? Washing your hands with soap as well. Before. As far as afterwards, try your best to avoid any type of smell of perfume. Including petroleum jelly that may have a scent to it. So try your best to get scentless deodorant, scentless petroleum jelly for your legs, whatever the case may be. Wearing oil is lawful before the ihram as long as it doesn't touch the clothes. Watches, rings, glasses are all lawful. Women, you don't have to worry about any of those things because you're going to wear your normal clothes like you normally would without the niqab. All right, tell you. So I made my ghusl. I washed up, trimmed my nails, mustache, armpits, so on and so forth. At Dhul Hulayfa, you make a perfect wudu. Now it's time to say Allahumma labbaika umrah. If you choose to make 2 rak'ah, then do so. Whether they are sunnatul ihram or sunnatul wudu. Ala qawlayn. Ala qawlayn. Alright, many scholars say that there are 2 rak'ah recommended for umrah, and some scholars say there is no proof that those are 2 specific sunnah rak'ah for umrah, but that's for wudu. Alright. Now, I've made the intention, I've verbalized it, all right? I'm now prohibited from covering my head as a man. It's hot. Can't cover your head. You want to give your wife a hug and a kiss. I love you. We did it. Alhamdulillah, we made it here. You can't do that. Any type of emotion or affection, any type of romantic gesture is impermissible and it will ruin things. As well for men and for women. There's no shyness in the deen. Keep your thoughts pure. Lower your gaze and keep your mind forward from anything erotic or sexual pertaining to the opposite sex. Period. All right. I'm officially a Haji now. You get on the bus. Bismillah. Everything is covered. On the bus, labbaik Allahumma labbaik, labbaik la sharika laka labbaik, and alhamda, wa ni'mata laka wal mulk, la sharika lak. Especially for the men, you're going to keep saying this. You're going to keep raising your voice, saying your voice is hoarse. You're going to keep praising Allah, lauding Allah, declaring His oneness from Medina all the way to Mecca. All right? If you happen to say it together in unison, that's one thing. But don't make your intention to be in perfect unison. Women should make the talbiyah. Many scholars say that they shouldn't raise their voices but so loud. Right. Once we're on the bus, you take a nap, that's fine. You can eat, you can drink, that's fine. You break your wudu, use the bathroom, that's fine. You have lunch, you eat a snack, gummy worms, sour worm, that's totally fine. All of those things are permissible. If you're sitting next to your wife, no hugs, no kisses, no romantic stuff. She's a stranger to you right now. Don't forget that. Because if you've been with your wife for 30, 40 years, it's only normal for you to, but you have to keep in a pure state, and vice versa. When you give your husband a hug, it's emotional for you. Nah, stay away from those things. All right, we are now arriving at Mecca. I see the Kaaba. The men are going to show off their strength. They're going to unveil their right shoulders. As soon as the first 3 are out of the 7.
I have a question concerning expressing the emotion. For example, if your spouse begins to cry,
make dua for her. Don't hug her.
What was the question?
About emotional support. Don't hug her.
Does the husband cry?
She makes dua for him. Don't hug him. Avoid the hugging. Once you open up the door, avoid the hugging. All right? And it's wisdom why I'm saying that. Stay safe. Don't go near that which is going to mess up your Umrah. Period. You make dua. May Allah bless you, sister. Come on, get up. You got to keep going. May Allah bless you, brother. Get up. You got to keep going. I'm tired. Okay. So am I. We'll sleep at the hotel. Inshallah ta'ala. All right.
I only said that because sometimes we do become emotional, and then one spouse may think that you're not showing any, concern for them.
This is the purpose of the talim. Right? This is why fiqh of the deen is so important. All right. After you've done the first 3, you cover back up. Women, there's no special uncovering that you want to do. You make your 7, and that goes back to what we just left off with the sa'i and the haircut. So we went forward and then we went what? Backwards. All right. A couple questions for brothers and for sisters. What happens if you break your wudu making tawaf? What should you do? Try your best. Be in the night time. Water is close by. Don't go too far. Because the tawaf should be made in synchrony. It should be made successfully. So if you have to make wudu, try to hurry to make wudu and finish where you left off. Women. Can a woman go into the ihram state on her menstrual cycle? Yes or no? Say no. Yes or no? It's an extremely important question. Can she go into ihram or not? A woman can go into ihram, but she cannot make the tawaf, and if she can't make the tawaf, she can't make the sa'i. So, I know it's getting sunny, inshallah. Recommended thing, according to many scholars that I forgot to mention, al-ishtirat inda aqd al-niyya. You say, Allahumma, labbaika umratan, فإن حبسني حابس فمحلي حيث حبستني. Oh Allah, it's my intention to make umrah for your sake. And if something stops me, if something inhibits me, I leave ihram where you have stopped me. So for argument's sake, a woman, she starts her ihram, she gets her cycle. What should she do? She should sit and she should wait. But the days are, I gotta go back home, the flight. I don't have money to book the hotel. What do? mushkila. We'll talk more in detail, inshallah, on the bus because this isn't directly pertaining to Medina to Mecca. So if a sister is menstruating, she is allowed to go into the ihram state. She cannot make the tawaf. She waits until she becomes pure, and then we'll talk about what she can do. All right. As far as tawaf al-wada, farewell pilgrimage, or the farewell tawaf, excuse me, we'll discuss that on the bus, let alone there. We don't have to discuss that right now because obviously we have conditions. All right, everybody clear on this? Last but not least, raise your hand if your questions were answered by what we just explained.
No, and
Bismillah.
I heard a
Fadal,
question that
fadal.
still wasn't answered. We didn't say, she asked if we made 2 raka'ah on the get there.
No. Clearly mentioned you start with your tawaf. The 2 rak'ah are after the tawaf behind Ibrahim Station. That was answered. Ah.
The intentions we make on behalf of someone else.
Making Umrah or Hajj with someone else is permissible with conditions. One of those conditions is that you did it for yourself already. Everyone understand this? Do you have to make it on someone's behalf? That depends. They were eligible for Hajj, they had the money, and they died before doing it. Or is in a will. So yes, you can. It is lawful to do so. And inshallah can be a means of good treatment and respect for, especially if your parents are Muslim, so on and so forth. So the answer is yes. You know, there's some details, but the answer is yes, inshallah. Wallahu a'lam. Fadal.
While I work inside.
Is there anything specific? No. No. You can read, benefit, make Quran, make dhikr, have a mushaf with you? No.
Do you have to say anything in Arabic? You say it in English.
The supplication should be made in Arabic. The specific supplication should be made in Arabic. You have the Roman transliteration. If you have to read from the book, if you have to memorize on the bus, memorize in its original language. Wallahu a'lam. Fadal.
Can you read it off your phone?
Phone is permissible. Phone is like a book. Fadal. How long? There's no time limit. But be mindful. Because you got 7 times. You may have somebody with you. You're strong enough to stand up, but I'm not. So be mindful. You gotta pace yourself. And passing out of fatigue, spraining your ankle it's real. It can happen. So be mindful. Okay? Fadal. Sorry? Well, Zamzam is recommended after tawaf before the sa'i. Nah, second favor. Yes. No, that's recommended. That's recommended, yes. Before you go into the sa'i. So right now it's tawaf, rak'atain, Zamzam, sa'i. Wallahu a'lam. Al-Ramal. Tayyib. Uncovering the right shoulder on the first 3 rak'ah. It's recommended, inshallah ta'ala, to walk briskly as well. Short, quick paces, leaning forward.
What that looks like.
Right.
I read it, but I don't understand.
Understood. So Ramal, you're not running full speed. It's like you're speed walking almost. You're walking really, really fast, and your footsteps are to be together. So it's like this. You want to lean forward, you want to move briskly, and you want your paces to be closely knitted. Wallahu a'lam. Inshallah. Bismillah. Your husband and you make walk at the same time. If he's pushing you, that's he's walking, and you are as well. He has to take into consideration your needs first.
So I don't have.
It's not obligatory. Only recommended. And don't ever forget, you have to prioritize my health, my needs, versus something that's recommended. You should do everything that's recommended, but my needs, I can't. So you have to prioritize your health, your well-being. Like I said, you got to pace yourself. Your well-being takes precedence over a recommended act. Don't ever forget that. It's very important. Your well-being takes precedence over a preferred act.
I feel like you have to do with the ritual itself, but what about becoming Haji and Hajjah? Does it pertain to Umrah and
Becoming
Haji?
does it?
Because
Okay.
you mentioned it.
Understood.
You mentioned when you enter the state.
Okay, that's both. Hajj, Umrah is a smaller type of Hajj. It's related to Hajj. It's mentioned. Both are mentioned in the Quran. Allah mentioned them together. So Hajj and Umrah are connected. They're connected. Obviously, Hajj is superior. But Umrah is a type of and a branch of Hajj. Yeah. Wallahu a'lam. Khairan inshallah. Jazakumullah khairan. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.